Hey cats and kids, Captain Zorikh here, and I am going to be wearing the mask for this particular live report here to you because it's getting a little bit more crowded out here. The grayness of the sky is still about the same. Maybe it's a little brighter because the sun's higher, and there is a little bit more activity here, being as it's pushing noon or whatever. I have no idea what time it is, but there's so many fascinating things here on 57th Street that I actually have that have had significance in my life. I just wanted to be a little self-indulgent and share it with you. So I'm going to start all the way here to the west. Now down there you see the word Watson, backwards of course, because this is Facebook Live. Now it used to be a Holiday Inn, which was pretty much a home for low-budget comic book conventions, nostalgia conventions, autograph shows that I've been at a few times. And I have no idea what this building here is, but I do know that it's been under renovation for years. You can see by the entrances of that door there, it's something kind of interesting there. Hey Sarah, hey Anthony. So what I'm doing right now is I did a little Facebook Live report from 57th Street because with the slate gray sky and deserted streets, it felt exactly like that Lawyer movie with Keanu Reeves and Al Pacino. And so I just gave an update on the various things going on in my life. And now, however, there are so many fascinating things on 57th Street to look at and to tell you about, because 57th Street is actually kind of a big part of my life, that I just felt like being self-indulgent and sharing it with y'all. Hey Kasha, how are you? I know you actually used to live around here. Now these buildings, this big building complex here is the Park Vendôme. Now that used to be a low-income housing project from like 1931, I think it was built, or something like that, 1921. But it was still a nifty building. They used to have an intercom system between the apartments, and in 66, I want to say, it was converted into a luxury apartment building, a co-op actually, and or it is now. Very fascinating story how my mom got in. I grew up on 61st Street and 2nd Avenue, a building that's not there anymore. Why is it not there, you may ask? Real estate company bought it up and tore it down. Of course, before they could tore it down, they had to get everybody out. And the deal was, all the tenants, each of them individually, pick an apartment that they want to move into in New York City. The company would buy the apartment and rent it to you for the same rent you currently have for the rest of your life. And my mom then got a really good real estate lawyer, or whatever they are, and got a really comfortable sum of money on top of that. She was the last person to leave that apartment and I got her to look at, and I looked with her for a lot of apartments for a year and a half until she found the best one. 40% bigger. They've got a garden inside with amenities, a pool room, a card room, a piano room. They have a big mixer every year. Anyway, we're coming up on 57th Street and 8th Avenue, and this is the Hearst Building, or this is the building that Hearst Magazines is in. Now, up top, you can see it's fascinating. It's got a fascinating modern geometric design, but down at the bottom, it's got all this stonework here. And those statues, those Art Deco statues there, well, it's kind of like Art Nouveau meets Art Deco, have got to have some symbolism to them. Let's see if I can get yeah. There you go. If anybody knows what the symbolism is, I see the first one. That's probably Athena because she's got a helmet and what looks like a snake at her foot. Then there's, could that be Hermes with the lyre, and is that a winged helmet and an eagle at his feet? Then you've got someone with, that must be comedy and tragedy up over there, because I see the Zardoz heads, one laughing, one sad. Not laughing. Let me get out of the street here. Over here, the club called Providence, formerly known as Le Bar Bat. That, among other things, is the place of the infamous high school reunion in which I learned to respect alcohol in a way that I never did before. Anyway, one fascinating thing about this Hearst building here is that it was designed to be like completely water self-sufficient. There are waterfalls, a water stairway inside that recycles all the water that falls down on it as rain, cleans it, uses it in the building. On the corner there we see who's the Greek goddess with the two owls. Whoever that is, that's whose statue that is on the corner. And oh yeah, Bartok used to live in that building that Providence is, that the club called Providence is. By the way, that club is shut down, and I hear tell they're rebuilding it into an environmental theater, kind of like that So Much Blood is. Okay, now let's see. Next to whoever the goddess with the owls is I can't quite tell what that is. A screw press, maybe? It's a male god. But now looking down from there, you can see a female figure in armor with a shield and a helmet. And we're a bit too far away to see the rest of them. Well, that looks like tragedy and comedy over again. Whoops, car about to run me over. So yeah, I'm sure that Gothamist or some other kind of website about New York City can tell you more details about that. So we're going to move on. Now, there used to be quite a number of bookstores here on 57th Street. Unfortunately, none of them are still here. For instance, a very large one, Coliseum Books, named after the New York Coliseum, which is what the Columbus Center building used to be, was right here, and now it is what is this place? This is Nordstrom. Nordstrom has pretty much taken over the corner here, as you can see. So, this intersection. So if you want to know where Nordstrom is, it's right here. And Columbus Center and which used to be the New York Coliseum, where you could go to see the New York Auto Show every year, is down that away. And that building that looks like it's mosaic tile was recently refurbished. Used to be one of the ugliest buildings, but I thought it was quite fascinating in its kind of Turkish decor. We have passed the offices of the New York City Roadrunners Club, which I'm pretty, which is next to a Starbucks, which used to be the satellite store of the Complete Strategist, which was the place to go for role-playing games and war games and that kind of stuff. Had a good run. I had a friend who worked there for several decades, but it's not there anymore. As I said, it's a Starbucks. Now, on our earlier tour here, I talked about Lee's Art Shop, which isn't Lee's Art Shop anymore. It is now basically an exhibit space, but the building it's in is quite fascinating. Actually, the one next to it is pretty cool too. It's got this medieval, I think that's Gothic-inspired detailing on the outside, including these escutcheons with fleur-de-lis on them. And then next to it is the building that's the home of the former Lee's Art Shop, with some quite ornate work over the main entrance window. Makes me wonder what this building was originally built for. If anybody knows any of the answers to these questions, feel free to put them in the comments right there. Beautiful, isn't it? Now, for those of you who love movies, there used to be a movie theater called the Regency. It was on the lower Upper West Side, like 67th Street or something, and they showed classic American cinema for a discount price too. Saw a lot of movies there. Everything from Wizard of Oz to Casablanca to Clockwork Orange, and so forth. Anyway, that got shut down when Cineplex Odious bought it, and they turned it into like a regular First One theater. Saw Schindler's List there, but then I guess they just weren't making enough money and shut it down entire. Tore the building down, put it in. I think there's an Apple store there now. Well, the manager, the owner of the Regency, well, Cineplex Odious happened to have gotten their hands on the movie theater that used to be here. And they pretty much gave it to him, and he ran that as the Biograph for a couple of years. But I guess it wasn't making enough money either. So, and by the way, next to it was also the Hard Rock Cafe. The Hard Rock Cafe is now in Times Square, but this was the home of the Hard Rock Cafe right next to the Biograph Theater, right next to the Art Students League of New York. The Biograph then moved to 23rd Street, took over the Chelsea Cinema, and I saw a few movies there, but that didn't stay around for more than a couple of years. And probably the guy running it has died by now. And that was about the time that revival houses were closing down all over the city because of competition with cable TV and the VCR, and then the DVD players, and then all that. Now, here's the Art Students League. Now, here's one fascinating little piece of art in the window that I just love, being a medievalist. It looks like it's a take on what do you call it? Thanks. I pulled the mask over my nose. Thanks. Lee's Art Store used to be a mansion. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, I could see that. It just recently showed the Trolls traveling exhibit, and before that it showed Downton Abbey for like a year and a half, 2 or 3. Anyway, this looks kind of like a type of, they're going for a, hey Skip, you ought to dig this. I think they're going for a tarot card look, but it's sophistry. That's one of the sciences. So they got like medieval knights with demonic helmets and gas masks and an assault rifle with a sniper scope and so forth. Anywho, and now here on this pillar, I'm not 100% sure which of the designs in those squares are graffiti and which were designed to be there, because they got all kinds of stuff going both ways here on these pillars. But hey, it's the Art Students League, so of course you're going to have art. Anywho, so there's a little Art Nouveau there, the goddess of Pantene. There you go. There's a little something that looks like it came out of a painting class here. All right, the Brooklyn Diner, the finer diner, right across the street there, makes it look like it's your basic greasy spoon, streamlined 1950s diner, but of course it's premium priced. We're coming up on, now, the Carnegie Deli. That would be a block and a half down if it still existed, but it doesn't anymore. Victim of its own, victim of the times. Even though they had premium priced overstuffed sandwiches, the rent just went up because the rent was going up for everyone. They couldn't hang on. But if you ever want to, the Carnegie Deli was, among other places, made famous by the Woody Allen movie Broadway Danny Rose. Instead, you've got the Carnegie Diner and Cafe, which has pictures and paintings of performing artists on the walls there. And then, of course, I didn't have to practice this. I just did it every day because it's what I do. But here we are at Carnegie Hall. Yes, by the way, me and my mom have been on Carnegie Hall. Professor Peter Schickele and his performance persona, PDQ Bach, used to perform there every Christmas, New Year's, I think it was. My mom won a call-in contest to be on stage during part of the show. We got free tickets, and then they said it was okay for me to be part of it too. And so here's the gimmick. In the middle of a particular musical number, my mom would come out of the stage right, walk up, tap Professor Peter Schickele on the shoulder while he was sitting at the piano, and pantomime like she was asking, is this the Carnegie Deli? And he would say, no, that's outside, make a left and a block and a half down. And she would go out left, off stage left. And so then, at the end of the show, after the curtain, as the people were leaving, me and my mom would walk back the other way, eating Carnegie Deli sandwiches. It was such a great piece that we were invited to come back the next night to do it over again. Now, here is the famous Russian tea room that is closed and opened several times. I'm not even sure if C-19 notwithstanding, it's actually even open now. I think it is. Not sure if it's by the same owners. The movie Tootsie has a wonderful scene in there. I recommend it. Now, there used to be a movie theater over here. I remember there was a movie called Allegro non troppo, an animated classical musical that we never got to see, but it used to be playing here. And there was this great little Japanese restaurant right here that is now at Morton Williams, a Fresh Marketplace. That was the first place I ever had green tea. And that place, by the way, used to be Planet Hollywood, believe it or not. Hey, let's see. Skip, what's the vibe like? It does look surprisingly entry. Hey, Skip. Yeah, thanks for tuning in. Yeah, sorry you missed the morning report, but the vibe, it really depends upon where you're at. And New York City is such a big city that there could be the Twin Towers falling down in Manhattan while there are kids playing in the street in Brooklyn. And guess what? I just found a penny. However, in this day and age, I'm not going to pick a penny up the street because you never know who's holding on to it. Now, there used to be another movie theater over here that is now the Directors Guild Theater. And its significance for me is that's where I saw the Talking Heads Stop Making Sense concert film. And I also saw Giorgio Moroder's version of Metropolis. That is Fritz Lang's Metropolis. They got they got the best footage they could and got some extra footage and wrote a whole new rock and roll soundtrack for it. And this was like 1984 thereabouts. Very good year to be showing Metropolis. And it was actually pretty awesome. If you can find it anywhere, Giorgio Moroder's version of Metropolis, I do recommend it. Let's see. So, and yeah, back in the 80s, someone came up with a little expression, please don't litter, people have to sleep here. So, yes, homelessness is still a thing in New York City. Now, this place called Angelo's Pizza used to be a place called Wine and Apples. It's got a really nifty split level effect in there, only it was a bit more rustic than it appears now. And the prices were really cheap. It was basically a Greek restaurant. And right down here in one of these places, I think this place, in fact, yep, this was it, was a Japanese bookstore. Not Kinokuniya. I think it was just called Nippon Books. That was it. That's right when I discovered anime and manga. And I got all those big telephone book-sized collections of Akira back when they were in Japanese. I still have them. And here's a little thing about why printing translations of manga in the Japanese style of reading from right to left doesn't work. Because we here who read English read from left to right. So a comic book is supposed to guide your eyes from one part of the page to the other, and a good artist will use the fact that you start reading from the top left and finish at the bottom right. If you're trying to read the pictures from the top right to the bottom left, but then you have to go backwards to read the words, it's going to disrupt the flow. So that is why I prefer to read manga with the pages in reverse, with the pages flopped, so that you can read them like you would read them in English. Okay, that's my little rant there. Okay, what do we got here? Christine, hey, how are you? The history of the 218 to 220 West 57th Society House of the American Society of Civil Engineers. Oh, that's Lee's Art Shop, West 57th Street. Cyrus L. Edlitz, architect. 1918, ground story alteration. Originally built 1905 to 06. Oh, built 1896 to 97. Wow, that's awesome. Okay, now, this here corner across the street from me right now, right in front of Rue Saint-Gotset, or 57 in English, that was where, in the summer of 1993, between my freshman and sophomore years of my second attempt at college, when I was going to the School of Visual Arts, I made a lot of money selling comic books. Remember, that was the year that Superman died. Batman got his back broken by Bane. Ooh, I love the alliteration there. And then, what's it called? There was an X-Men Avengers crossover and all sorts of new companies. Image was hot and big, and Valiant was hot and big, and Malibu was trying to get itself noticed, and there were all other, everybody with a dollar and a dime and a pencil was putting together a new comic book company. And so this guy named James Smith opened up a comic book shop called Comic Mania right next to the School of Visual Arts on 23rd Street, the very day before, on new student days of that school year. I walked in, straightened out the 4 boxes of comics that he had, and next thing you knew, I had a job there. And then after about a year, he sold out to someone else, disappeared, took the money and run, basically. He was a little scam artist. And then Spooky, that's what we called him, because he would walk around saying Spooky because that was his favorite character. He basically ran it in the ground because he was a terrible businessman. And also, to no small part also, because the comic book market really dried up. I made exactly about half as much money selling comics on that same very street corner. Actually, no, I had to go to a different street corner because Rue 57 was not open in the summer 93, but he was in the summer 94, and they wouldn't let me be in front of them selling my comics, so I had to move. So, so after that, Comic Mania shut down, and I had to get a slightly more real, well, I already had a more real job, but I wasn't able to sell comic books anymore. So, that's the story of 57th Street and 6th Avenue, which, by the way, is possibly the worst corner to ever try to get a taxi cab in the afternoon when you have luggage that needs to go into the trunk. All right, and it would only fit into the trunk of one of the 2 models of taxi cab and not the other. So I had to wait for that model of taxi cab, make sure that, and then flag it down. And if I didn't get one right away, I guarantee you, it's going to be 30 minutes till I got one. And on one particular day, this woman just stood in front and tried to be thought she was doing the nice thing by flagging the cab down for me, but she was standing right in front of where the cab had to go in order to get to me. Then there was the other time the cab didn't stop, ran into my arm, broke the rear window. Blood all over my forearm. Fortunately, another cab came right along. Okay, and it got me, well, just to look at some interesting things. When buildings get torn down, you get to see what's behind buildings. And I think those bay windows there, those window projections in the back of that building there, makes me wonder, why did they put those in the back of a building that nobody can see? Okay, fascinating. Metropolitan used to be a gallery of really fine antiques and stuff, and it's not there anymore. Likewise, Club Monaco. I wonder if these buildings are coming down. But this building here on the corner, it's got Bulgari as its anchor store. Fascinating thing about that is, much like the Hearst Building, they left the facade and erected a steel and glass tower on the inside. So that was a kind of a remarkable and revolutionary thing to do, because by leaving the facade out front, it held true to the old saw. You don't tug on Superman's cape, you don't spit into the wind, you don't pull the mask off the old Lone Ranger, and you do not build a glass building on 5th Avenue. And so the Warner Brothers store, which used to be here. Oh my God, this looks so empty now, but that's only because it's a red light. There's cars coming. Okay, just look at that emptiness, all right? This is like lunchtime on a Thursday, okay? The city is not, and this is an office neighborhood, so there would be people all over getting their hot dogs and lunches for lunch here during their lunch breaks. By the way, did anybody notice how lunch hours became a half an hour about 10 years ago? What's that about? But we got Bergdorf Goodman's here. You may remember that from the movie Arthur, when Liza Minnelli stole a necktie. But yeah, the Warner Brothers studio store, during the beginning of the cleanup of this town and the beginning of its so-called revival, I forget if that was Koch or Dinkins or Giuliani, but right about the same time that they put a Disney store in Times Square, the Warner Brothers studio store was here, and they were cool about it because they put this faux stone frontage with these bas reliefs of the Warner Brothers characters. But now Louis Vuitton just put this glass covering on the building as if they're trying to imitate the infamous Trump Tower. Now you'll see the concrete barricades over there. Used to be there were protests out here pretty much every day, but of course what with the social distancing we're having to do, protesters aren't out there anymore. I'm going to move us up to 58th Street now, which is pretty much the corner or about the corner of Central Park, to show you just a few things, and then I'm going to sign off because I'm running out of battery juice and I got to get home. And there's a subway station for me over here. So we're walking past Bergdorf Goodman, which is one of the famous stores in Fifth Avenue that has those great, fantastic window displays in Christmas time. The window displays are not nearly so ornate now as they are at Christmas time, but still are significant. And there's another Bergdorf Goodman on the other side. It looks like behind me is women's clothes, and across the street is men's clothes. But their location across the street used to be the home of F.A.O. Schwartz. And I used to take the bus home from school, the Fifth Avenue bus, and if I knew my mom wasn't at home and wouldn't yell at me for being late, I would go over to F.A.O. Schwartz and play with all the toys. F.A.O. Schwartz then moved over to that two-story structure on the corner of this building until they were bought up by Toys R Us, and then about a year or so later were shut down. That was about 2011 or 12 that they shut down, because I remember going through it with my girlfriend on one of our first dates. There also, by the way, is the Apple Store. Now, when I was a small child in the 70s, downstairs there was some kind of bar or restaurant, I recall, that had drag racers on the ceiling. If anybody has any idea what the fuck that's about, I'd sure love to know, because it's one of those cherished memories of my youth of seeing drag racers on the ceiling of a bar or restaurant with my godbrother. Okay, more Bergdorf Goodman fashions here. We're going around to the Plaza Hotel, which, as I understand, isn't entirely a hotel anymore. It's owned by Trump, I think, unless he sold it or something. And it's like co-ops or condos, private residences of some sort. The movie Crocodile Dundee and Arthur both had scenes that took place in here. And now this here is the Paris Theater. It don't look like much because, like all movie theaters in the city, it's shut down. But yeah, Midtown. Hi, Daniel. Yeah, this is pretty much Midtown. Arthur was an awesome movie. Maria-Agnes, how are you? Anywho, funny I should see you here. This is the Paris Theater. Okay, the Paris Theater is the last single-screen movie theater in New York City. Ziegfeld Theater, which is just a couple of 3-4 blocks away from here, closed down as a movie theater a couple of years ago and now is an event space, and that's a tragedy because it was a large and glorious theater. But when they're showing James Bond and Planet of the Apes movies in summertime, you know that they're really searching, that they're trying to get an audience desperately. Anyway, the Paris Theater here was was actually closed. It did shut down. But then guess who bought it? Netflix. And why do you think Netflix would buy a brick and mortar movie theater? Well, because apparently it seems in order to get a movie noticed by the Motion Picture Academy of Arts and Sciences, it's got to play in a movie theater. And so now Netflix can show their movies in a movie theater and get Oscars if they ever deserve one. Oh, come on. Netflix makes some good stuff. Oh, and if anybody ever wonders why Wall Street, narrow streets, tall buildings, pressed up canyons, but everywhere else you got buildings that are wide on the bottom and narrow up at the top. Okay, that's because there are setback laws. People got pissed off that the lack of sunshine in the canyons of Wall Street, and so they said, hey, let's make some laws about that. And so there is actually a model that shows a slope that's supposed to represent the side of your building, and somebody just decided to take that literally. Now, we're going to close out with a shot of the gilded statue of some general, and no, not every statue follows the pattern of this leg up, that leg down means they won or lost a battle or a war. I think that's General Grant. And some funky designed Jeep here. Okay, thank you very much, but I can tell by the darkness of my screen I'm pretty much out of time. So, to sum up, tune in at 3 o'clock this afternoon. It's going to be Captain Zorikh's day late socially distant music break. Sorry I didn't do it yesterday, I was busy. Okay, and I'll be doing a mix of covers and originals live on Facebook. And I love you all. And with Central Park in the background, not far from where that scene in Highlander was shot, coming at you. Just in case anybody didn't realize it was me.